already at 4 o'clock, so we'll start our meeting. If we should encounter an emergency situation, please exit the building. There's 2 sets of doors off of the lobby, and if for some reason those exits are not available, you can follow council, and behind us there is an additional exit. Our muster point is located near the gazebo in Lions Park, and if we have been evacuated for any reason, we will not re-enter the building until we're given an all clear from staff. Thank you. Next, we move into the land acknowledgement. Councillor Payne.
The town of Sylvan Lake respectfully acknowledges that the land on which we gather is Treaty 6 territory, home of the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. These lands are traditional meeting grounds, gathering places, and travel routes for many nations, including the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Métis, Saulteaux, and the Nakota Sioux. We are grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are still with us today, and for those of us who have gone before. We acknowledge and thank all the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Next, we have open microphone. Open microphone is an opportunity for a member of the public to express his or her feedback on an issue pertaining to council's authority. Open microphone is limited to a maximum of 15 minutes, and each speaker is limited to a maximum of 5 minutes. After the presentation, members of council will only ask questions of clarification. You will not receive a response tonight or feedback directly from council after your presentation. Items that require response will be brought forward at a future date. And we do have one sign up tonight for open microphone. Mr. Colling, welcome. Come on forward. Once you're settled in, if you can press the round button in the center of the microphone and just hang tight. You'll see there's a countdown clock here. Once it gets to 1, it will beep a bunch of times. And then if you could just start with an introduction. Thank you.
Good evening, I guess, or late afternoon. My name's Wade Collins, 5052 51st Street, Sylvan Lake. I have the right to remain silent, but because I'm a Collins, I don't have the ability. So I would like to talk about speculation. Some of us go through life seeking answers to questions we have, and if we do not acquire the information we seek, we are left to speculate. I reserved a table at the info fair at the NextSource Center under my name. Shortly thereafter, I received an email from an employee of the town of Sylvan Lake asking a question about my rental under the name of the Alberta Prosperity Project. I emailed that person back that I had in fact not registered under the Alberta Prosperity Project and questioned where the information came from. That question initiated a phone call between myself and the employee of the town. On the call, when I inquired about how that information came about, I was told by the employee that another town employee had brought that to their attention. I asked who that person was, and the employee of the town said they would not tell me who. When I asked why, I was told there was a need to protect said employee of the town. I wasn't sure as to what that meant, protect them from what, but apparently that's what I heard. A few emails later, there were a few more town employees involved in this matter, all seemingly protecting the employee who started the rumor. After multiple emails back and forth, I did not get the answer I was seeking. We could have just finished it right there with a few people involved, but now here we are. All I wanted was an apology from this person and an explanation as to why they would start such a rumor about me, a Sylvan Lake taxpayer. I gave them ample time to correct this indiscretion to no avail, which leaves me speculating that I was considered irrelevant. I can only speculate who it was and can only speculate their reasons for doing so and can only speculate that if the town employees will cover up something as simple and benign as this, what else could they have no issue covering up? To any of the councillors who are interested, I've got a mountain of information I could share with you. I could give you names and all the rest of that kind of stuff if you're interested as to why I think my speculation is correct, and then you can do whatever you want with that information. I don't care. I've been a taxpayer in this town for 37 years and paid property taxes on 2 properties for many of those years. I know that a portion of my tax dollars go to pay town employees. That is one thing. But for me, a greater thing is if a person has the nerve to start a rumor about somebody, they should have the nerve when they get caught to apologize to that person face to face. That's another thing. The third thing is, as an employee of the town, taking a taxpayer's stance on any issue should not affect their ability of making their choices in any way while performing their duties. Thank you.
Council, do we have any questions? Councillor Johansson.
Always good to see you, Mr. Collin. Just for my own clarification, so you had booked something in the next source under your own name, nothing to do with anything else, just under your own name, and essentially you felt discriminated against because of whatever ties people might tie you to. Is that's correct?
Well, because, I mean, it's no secret where I stand on independence. I mean, you know, and also no secret when I filled in my stuff to run for council way back in March of last year, I was quite vocal in the fact where I stood on independence and that I was a permanent volunteer with the Alberta Prosperity Project. But when I applied for that table at the Next Source Centre, Alberta Prosperity Project was not on any document anywhere.
Okay, yeah, appreciate that. Thank you.
Councillor Avenicki.
Mr. Collins, I'm just wondering, what were you looking to book at the Next Source Centre then? Because the InfoFest
It was the table for the information fair.
Correct, but I'm just curious because if you booked it in your name, booked it in your name,
yes,
the InfoFest is for like businesses and organizations to host an event to let the community
well,
know about.
Actually, that was discussed in with the employee of the town. There was some concern that since I was running for council, I shouldn't be using this as a I don't know, a soapbox or whatever you want to call it. And the reality was I read every bit of the info fair information before I applied. There was absolutely nothing in there that said I couldn't do it. And then as it turned out, it was perfectly fine. Go ahead, you can do it if you're running for council. And it had nothing to do with the Alberta, I was told later it had nothing to do with the Alberta Prosperity Project, absolutely nothing. So my question is, well, why did that name even come up? Why did it even come up? If it had nothing to do with it. And you know, much to my shock and surprise, when I did get my table at the info fair, I went in there and there was a Forever Canadian table there, and I asked the employees of the town if they got a phone call or an email, and there was no such thing.
Thank you. Any additional questions, Council? Councillor Johansson.
So just to be super clear, you did end up getting the
Yeah.
booth there. Okay, it was just a hassle, and I'd say like it doesn't. If you followed all the rules, it shouldn't matter why you're there in the first place. So I'll give you that. So, but you did end up getting it. It's more just the way that you were treated up until that point that it brings the concern. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
The fact that somebody started a rumor, and as an employee of the town, a person's stance, whether it's political or whatever, that should not matter when they are performing their duties as an employee of the town that gets paid by taxpayers' dollars.
I couldn't agree with you more.
And I'm a taxpayer, and have been. I've never been late for 37 years.
Thank you. Appreciate the presentation. Now that our time is gone, I do have to carry on,
Okay.
so appreciate that.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Next up, we have our, adoption of the agenda. Ms. Phillips, do we have anything else to add to tonight's agenda?
Good afternoon, Council. There are no additions.
Thank you. Would someone like to make a motion? Councilor Mearns, thank you. You'll move to adopt that agenda. That sounds great. All those in favor and opposed, that is carried unanimously. Actually, I'm just going to insert a fun fact of a neighboring community, and you can settle in, Staff Sergeant Peden. I know you're up next. A neighboring community had an audit on their procedures done, and the only item that was brought forward was that they only put their hands up to vote, and the province has suggested that they also should be saying "I" enthusiastically every time for anyone who is visually impaired. So fun fact, I don't know that we'll start that today, but maybe it's coming for us. That was quite recent, so thank you. Next, we'll move to the consent agenda. Council, as a reminder, the consent agenda is an item used to increase meeting efficiency. A number of items have been marked by an asterisk by administration. Those are recommended to be a part of the consent agenda, but if you have extensive questions or would like to debate any of these items, please remove them prior to the motion being made. So first, I'll ask Council, is there any items we'd like to remove from the consent agenda? Seeing none, would someone like to make that motion? Councillor Awanicki, thank you.
All right, buckle up, folks. This will be a long one. I move that the 2026-03-10 regular meeting of council minutes be approved as presented, that the 2026-03-17 governance and priorities meeting of council minutes, meeting minutes be approved as presented, that council approves a public-facing municipal asset naming policy number R00105A as presented in report AIR 1349, and further that policy number R00105 is hereby rescinded, that council approves the "You Can Play Too!" grant policy number R004-001B as presented in report AIR 1350, and further that the policy "You Can Play Too!" grant policy number R004-001A is hereby rescinded, that council approves the Winter Games Legacy Grant Fund policy number R004-002B as presented in report AIR 1351, and further that Winter Games Legacy Grant Fund policy number R004-002A is hereby rescinded, and that council reappoint the individuals listed below to the Sylvan Lake Library Board with the following specified terms of expiry presented in AIR 1360. Joanne Crook, term expiry date October 23rd, 2028. Jonathan Plamunden Roy, Roy, term expiry date October 23rd, 2028. Carol Moore, term expiry date October 23rd, 2028. Nicole Kamara, term expiry date October 23rd, 2028. And Joe Iwanicki, term expiry date October 23rd, 2026.
Thank you for that novel. Council, any further comment? All those in favor? And opposed?
No, sorry, I missed it.
You're in favor? Aye. Let's do that one more time to clarify. All those in favor? Aye. There we go. That is carried unanimously. See, maybe there's something to that recommendation.
I was with my daughter all day. She was miserable today, and I'm a little tired. So I'm gonna do my best.
It's great. Hopefully you'll make it through. With that, we will carry on to tonight's delegation. We have representation here from the RCMP, and we are happy to hear from you tonight. Welcome.
Thank you. On the agenda, I see one item, but I'm actually here for two separate items. I think that I'd like to start off with recognition, an award for a young person in our community, a youth. Cooper, you're here and present. Do you want to come up? So, a little awkward, but hey. So, quite often, the youth in our community will step up to do, take action that a lot of people won't. And as a priority in our community, youth engagement has been a priority now for the last 4 or 5 years, as identified by the community and council in our annual performance plan. With that being said, and I don't know if I'll stand up here in a second there, Cooper, but I'm here today to recognize Cooper Bowen. Happy birthday today. On October 17th, 2024, Sylvan Lake RCMP and Emergency Services responded to a report of a motor vehicle collision in Sylvan Lake. Upon arrival to the scene, the members of the RCMP were met by Cooper Bowen, who had witnessed and reported the collision. Through the investigation, it was evident that Cooper had approached the injured motorist and offered to help as a motorcycle had crashed into a trailer, and it was clear the individual suffered injuries. Cooper quickly assessed the situation and immediately called 911 to report the collision. Additionally, he assisted at the scene to direct traffic until emergency responders had arrived. In doing this, he helped minimize additional risk to the public and individuals involved in the incident. Seeing this type of action demonstrates his quick thinking, decision-making abilities, and willingness to help his community members without hesitation. So on behalf of the RCMP in Sylvan Lake, Cooper, I'd like to present you with a certificate of recognition from our detachment. So we have the certificate there, sir. In addition, we have
That's absolutely, you know what, I was just gonna suggest, why don't we take a 4-minute recess? We can take a photo in a nice location. And happy birthday on the record. feedback. It's hard to go up from there once you recognize something great, but I look forward to the attempt.
Well, you can't be too disappointed then, so. Thank you for allowing us to do that. It's important to recognize the youth of the community, so. Today, here to report on our Q3 reporting. So oddly enough, Q4 is going to be done here in 7 days. But nonetheless, we will go through what we accomplished in Q3. So Q3 was October, November, December of this past year. And so I imagine everyone's taken a look at this already, but during the quarter, we continued our curfew checks, regardless of the members staying active with the chronic offenders to ensure that they're complying with their enforceable conditions. Could be curfew, could be a residence clause, but what we do is we continue to monitor them. We did see a slight decrease in the number of checks completed, but one of the significant ones that I can speak about is in December, an offender had been released, had been arrested, we released them in process, had been arrested again, had been re-released, and then eventually, after he was released with additional conditions, we ended up arresting him again within 16 hours, at which time the individual was remanded in custody. In this case, this individual had generated probably about, conservative guess estimate would be probably about 20 to 30 files. Anything from theft from motor vehicle to break-and enters. And so once the individual had been remanded into custody, awaiting court, our property crime dropped significantly in the matter of hours. So that's why we do these checks. It's one of the good news stories that we're on top of it that way. And this individual, like I said, the shoplifting, we had some theft of motor vehicles, there was some drug use, so on and so forth. So those are still before the court, so I can't give into too many details. But nonetheless, we are remaining on top of that. And so for the quarter there, the October, November, December, we completed 54 curfew compliance checks, of which we have some charges that are there. And that took our total to about 213 for the year. So it's down from where we were targeting, but these checks are meaningful. We have less people actually on our compliance list that we're trying to check because they're moving. They are also leaving the area because they don't like being checked, or the surety or the resident where they're residing doesn't like to be woken up at 2 in the morning and 11 p.m. and 4 in the morning when we're conducting these checks. Enhancing road safety. So that's another target and priority that we've had. Q3, a slight downturn in traffic enforcement compared to the previous 2 quarters. In Q3, we had 9 impaired drivers located and charged. In December, we had 2 joint check stop operations were planned. However, due to the extreme weather there in December, the one was not conducted. Our members are also facing a few shortages at that time, just with people taking some vacation and some people off duty sick at the time with the colds that were running through. But a total of 37 traffic violations had been written throughout that reporting period. 12 were speed related. And then, of course, we did have 2 fatal motor vehicle collisions, one of which was suspected to be alcohol related. So that's in the rural area, but that's still part of our enforcement piece there. So a crime reduction of the rural break-and enters, so more so on the rural side. However, we had 10 reported break-and enters in the rural area. It was noted that there had been one business which had 3 occurrences itself, which we we're continuing to work with. They're trying to come up with some solutions. We're offering now through Red Deer County, CPTED, the Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design Assessments. Red Deer County CPOs are all trained in it and are willing to help us out with those. Of note, those break and enters stopped after a certain individual was apprehended. So I can't say directly related, however, we noticed that there was a steep decline there as well. Then our accountability and transparency. Our community engagement continues on a daily basis. We do have key events in and around the community and in the rural area. And some of them are tracked and some of them aren't. In our daily travels, our members will engage with the public, business owners, and they don't track that stuff. That's just part of the day-to-day public engagement, our patrol plans, so on and so forth. We do track others that are obviously highlighted. And in the document there, you can see, so we have youth prevention. So in October, Sean and I both attended a youth meeting at the Flipside Youth Center, which was a great networking opportunity we had. And so we met representatives from Sylvan Lake and Central Alberta. Once again, him and I both attended the Summer Villages council meeting, so we're engaged with all the communities around us here. And it kind of goes on from there. Youth engagement's always been a big one, right? So after the teacher strike ended, Sean and I were both in the schools, in the high school, engaging to have that presence there. And it kind of goes on, so I know time limit is somewhat of an issue here, so I won't go into that great detail. Any questions?
Councilor Rennicki.
Very short question. I think I know the answer. You mentioned a certain number of compliance checks. That's not like individual offenders that are out there. That's just the number of total checks that we're conducting.
No, that's not the total number of offenders. It's the number of checks we do on the offenders. So at any given time, we have people on release for various reasons from the courts. It's the ones that are usually property-related crime offenders, drug offenders, and they have those conditions. So right now, I believe we have, I think, 7 that we're monitoring right now, but that can change in a moment. Someone moves from, say, Red Deer to Sylvan Lake, we'll get the update, then we will go and start checking. So, yeah.
Councilor Johansson.
Just curious, I know I've been asked this question and I don't know the answer, but what's your, like, maybe it's not you guys, maybe it's the courts, but what's the threshold for when you decide to remand someone into custody? I mean, you mentioned a guy that was arrested, released, arrested, 16 and released. I know that's a frustration in the community, especially someone that's doing property crimes, which can be quite dangerous. So what is the threshold? Who's making those decisions, and when do you decide, okay, this guy's got to stay?
So if someone's a first-time offender and it's a shoplifting, the criminal code says that we shall release, right? Here's your appearance notice, we'll release. But as things accumulate, or the severity of the offense accumulates, then that's when other criteria will kick in. So if there's a term of public interest, so basically repetition of the offense, identity, court, insurance that they're going to attend court, and evidence. And those 4 elements make that public interest. So if we aren't satisfied that an individual won't repeat a crime, then the repetition of the offense isn't met, then we will seek to have them taken before a justice of the peace to do a release hearing in a more, basically it's a over-the-phone courtroom. But for us, it is, we'll release, we have an appearance notice, we have an undertaking where there's conditions, so quite often it'll be undertaken with conditions depending on the type of offense, right? An assault. If there's an assault, quite often it's an undertaking with conditions, not have any contact, don't go, so on and so forth, right, with witnesses or the victim. But once those start to repeat or they breach those conditions, then that's when it elevates to the judicial interim release hearing, excuse me. And That's when we'll complete what's called a criteria for detention. So we'll lay out everything that's happened in the history. If they have previous releases that they failed to comply with, criminal record will be used, and then we present that package. And then in the interim release, the Justice of the Peace, who's presiding over the matter, will hear arguments or submissions from a Crown prosecutor and a defense counsel. So at that point, it's out of our hands. But quite often, public interest is that big key piece first, and safety of the public is often looked at as well. So I can say there's times when you feel that an individual will be remanded and they're not, and then there's times when you're like, there's no way this individual's going to get remanded, and they are. So it's out of our hands. Yeah. It's represented by a Crown prosecutor at that time. So.
Any additional questions, Council? I'll just add the comment that additional attachment that was sent around youth-involved police files was really interesting. So thank you for sharing that. I know that's a conversation that we have frequently. And did you want to touch on that?
Yeah, I can touch on it real quick because I think it's important. So I was able to get the statistics for 2025 from January to December 31st. Just about the youth, because youth is such a priority in this community, our youth engagement, and how we're going to move forward in the next priority cycle here to do that youth crime reduction, youth and not enforcement, but engagement, community engagement. So in 2025, the Sylvan Lake Detachment recorded 1,443 youth-involved files. So that's ages essentially 0 to 17. That's where they're listed on the file. Of that, 1,190 were in the municipal aspect, or the town of Sylvan Lake, and we had roughly 253 for outside of Sylvan Lake, so the Summer Villages rural area. A bit of a breakdown here, as you can see, when it comes to just the demographic there a little more. So females in the municipality had 513, the males were 662. Other unknown just means that it wasn't captured or wasn't recorded. And then you can see the breakdown there. What's interesting though is when we get into, you can see on here the data set. So as the older an individual gets, or the age groups get older, we're dealing with more of those individuals. And we can attribute that to through the summer months, through the schools, whatnot. So involvement type. So we've had, right here, so subject complaint when it comes to youth. In the municipality, we had 288 youth that were the subject of the complaint. Suspect means that they've been identified as a suspect, or our investigations led to them being a suspect. We had 54. We've charged 57 individuals and then arrested 98. So when we say arrested 98, we've only charged 57. We do often will arrest, and then we'll use, departmental discretion, or complainant doesn't want to proceed with charges, or under the Youth Criminal Justice Act, we can give a verbal warning, and so that's where that kind of falls under there. So, and then once again, you can see here that this chart is files relating to domestic violence. So this is children that are attached to a domestic violence file, or we do have some intimate partner violence amongst teenagers too. So it doesn't differentiate what they are. It just says that the file's flagged as a domestic violence matter there. And then of note here is our school breakdown. So here in the municipality, you can see that 12 to 16 range is a group that we're seeing more so, and that we're dealing with at the schools. And so we know that we've had one last year, it was I think a grade 10 group, And then this year we've had a bit of a grade 9 group we're seeing little flare-ups. I'm not saying that all the grade 9s are bad or grade 10s are bad, it's just that's where we're seeing some of our calls for service that are involving right now. And there's a breakdown of our clearance rates for our youth files for charges. So you can see that complete solved non-criminal. We have 151 files where it's not a criminal matter, no charges there. We've had 2 where we've sent in for charges, but the Crown's declined to approve them. 33 where charges were recommended. And then we have 5 where the victim or complainant requests no further action. So we do have calls for service where a teenager may be damaging property in the house, parent and child or youth have had a fight, and then we will go there, mediate it. Sometimes it could be arrest to prevent further continuation of the offense, and then the parents are like, no, we don't want charges, we just need to get them kind of under control. With those, we also have had some where we will transport them to the hospital under the Mental Health Act because of the danger to themselves is being presented. So it's a bit of a quick little overview for everyone there. Just kind of FYI, because like I said, I know moving this next priority plan that we're looking to build, it is important that youth is going to remain as one of our top priorities. Obviously in the schools is another priority, as we can see there too. So.
Excellent. Thank you. Council, do we have any questions on that portion? No. Thank you very much. Appreciate the information and always appreciate you seeing you here. Although we've seen you a lot lately. Last night, Councillor Mearns and I had the very first of our policing committee meetings and going through the priorities plan. So I appreciate you making so much time for us lately.
No problem.
Thank you. Excellent. Council, I failed to mention this when we were adopting the agenda, but seeing who is here in the audience, I'm just wondering if you'd indulge me in the adjustment to our business item order, moving item number B up next. Any concerns with that, Council? Great. Let's move along to the indoor recreation assessment, only because I spot some familiar faces in the gallery and I suspect they're here for a specific agenda item. And some of them probably also want to go home and feed their children tonight. So. Ms. Colligat, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So I am here to present the Indoor Recreation Assessment Report for Council's review. So in January of 2025, we had a couple of the user groups of the Nextdoor Center approach Council wishing to convert the curling rink into an arena. As a result, Council requested administration go forward and complete an indoor recreation assessment specific to the curling rink. When the Nextdoor Center was originally built, it was built with the intention that it could eventually be converted into an NHL-sized arena. So the slab and everything underneath has been designed with that in mind. What we didn't know is exactly what it would take in order to facilitate that. So really the purpose of this study was to determine what it would entail to do that. So you need to put boards, you need netting, you need an ice or surface room, space for dressing rooms, all those types of things. So the consultant was hired. They went through all of our plans. So they went through our Nextdoor Center plans. They went through our user groups, looked at all of the scheduling for the curling rink and the 2 arenas. They went through our budgets, all of our user numbers, basically anything including budget to really determine what that feasibility could look like and what that appetite would be. So in addition to the assessment report for the curling rink, we also had them complete the facility condition assessment report. They gave us a full life cycle planning of the space, so including the plant room, any of the mechanics or electrical pieces for that. They also gave us a full breakdown of costings of what it would take to convert the space, and then a few other cost estimate prep notes for us. They also took a look at some of our different plans. So we have the 2023 Parks and Open Spaces Master Plan, so they took some information from there as well to help them compile their report. So what they determined is that the evaluation of the existing system has the capacity to handle the additional electrical loads. They did recommend, however, that in the event the curling rink is turned into an arena, that the main disconnect be upgraded. They determined the ventilation system in the curling rink is sufficient to run an NHL-sized arena as well. And it had the proper cooling and pumping requirements that would be adequate for an ice resurfacer chiller, basically. They did consider 3 separate options, and part of this was consulting with the user groups. So they took these 3 potential options and asked the user groups their thoughts and if they thought it would be beneficial or helpful for them in any way. So option A is to convert the curling rink to a full-size NHL arena. So that would include a separate ice resurfacer room, dressing rooms, everything that it would take to actually be able to function as a full-sized arena. Now, the arena groups, so minor hockey, rec hockey, and lacrosse, felt that that's what they were basically looking for. The consultants made it very clear this option is not supported by the Sylvan Lake Curling Club, and it would likely harm the club if we moved in that direction. The second option is 2 mini rinks. So rather than 1 full-size arena, it would be 2 mini rinks that would be usable for perhaps practice ice. None of the user groups liked this idea. They didn't feel that it was helpful for them in any way. Again, this one, would not support the curling club in any way. The third option is to leave it status quo, so not make any changes. This option doesn't support the growth of hockey or lacrosse, but it does support the Sylvan Lake Curling Club. So we did ask the consultants to come up with other options or other possibilities on things that we can consider in the short term. One of the options that they presented us with is a potential short-term solution to have an outdoor ice surface with a covered space, so partially covered space, heated facilities for changing rooms, those types of amenities. Now, something like this does happen in larger centers. Of course, temperature does become a factor, so there would have to be certain regulations put in place where kids, for example, can't practice on ice once it hits a certain temperature rating outside. One of the other recommendations from the consultants is that we complete that integrated recreation facility assessment, and that was one of the items that we have brought forward to council for consideration as part of this budget, and that is the community recreation and cultural needs assessment. That's all I have as part of my report, but I'm happy to take any questions that council may have.
Thank you. We'll start with those questions. Councillor Iwanicki.
So it sounds like on the assumption that we approve the budget item for that assessment, that's more or less going to answer and fill in a lot of these gaps for us, is what we kind of figure.
Through the chair, yes, it'll give us a really good understanding of what the community needs are, not just in the short term, but in the long term. So when we're looking at planning, it's really important that we look at our user group numbers. We look at the trends that they're seeing. So for example, if last year they had 100 kids, for example, and they're projecting a growth of 50 kids per year, what does that look like? And as our population changes and demographics change in our community, how is that reflective on the facilities that we're going to need in the future? It also takes into account all of the spaces that are being booked out. And what else do we need? And then council can strategically prioritize the needs of the community rather than just operating on those one-offs.
Thank you. Councillor Johannesson.
What would the, like if the decision was made to convert it to a hockey rink, what would the timeline be from once that happened till once it was finished? And I guess I would assume, my second question would be, if that does happen, is there a plan in place for another space for the curling club?
Through the chair, off the top of my head, you're probably looking at about a year turnaround from at least once budget's approved. Once that budget is approved, all the tenders need to be done and it needs to be awarded. So it would be at least a year in order to facilitate something like that. Sorry, what was your second question?
And then the second question was, is there an option for the curling club if that happens? And I guess during that year that it's taking, that place would be unusable, I would imagine. Right? So they'd be out. And so I guess the question is there any sort of plan for the curlers of the community, if that does happen.
Right, through the chair. So really performing that assessment is probably your best bet because it'll give you a really good understanding of what the entire community needs are rather than just one user group.
I'll just add my 2 cents. We don't have a motion for that debate sort of portion, but I appreciate information. This is information that will age well. There's no big changes coming anytime soon. I certainly don't have a desire to be kicking one group out. I am very much looking forward to that needs assessment that just helps us prioritize. One day we will outgrow this facility, and that will look like potentially another space, whether it's for arena or for curling, and then this will become the alternate of that. As mentioned in earlier budget discussions, I'm not prepared to really make any direction on anything facility related until we do that full assessment. And I think there's some other projects that will probably come up higher on that list, but that's for the study to tell us. I'm really interested in how we're going to prioritize that and how we can give some certainty to, as much as we can, to user groups around where they fit, where expansion fits, what this looks like down the road. And you'll see my thoughts on that when it comes to budget, I guess, later. But I think that's very important. Appreciate that we have the information now and we know, but that's all it is at this point. Any other comments? Great. We do not need a motion on this item because we're not asking for any action, so we will just carry on, Council. Next, we'll circle back to the 2026 Municipal Enforcement Strategic Priorities. Mr. Lepsak.
Hello, Your Worship and Council. So today we're bringing forward the 2026 Municipal Enforcement Strategic Priorities. And again, as I said here in the report, we quite often do this in conjunction with the RCMP setting their annual performance plan. They've moved to a little bit of a new format, as we heard from at the last meeting. And so for that purpose, it's not going to line up completely at the same time, but we did develop them at the same time in conjunction with what they're talking about. And I believe, Madam Mayor, they're bringing theirs back end of May, I think it is, along with their financial planning for the year. So we'll tie those together at that point in time. So for our municipal enforcement strategic priorities, again, we've set 5 priorities for the 2026 season. A few of them will be repeats. I'm just going to run down to the actual slideshow instead of my notes. So the first priority, of course, is the lakefront. So we call it very tongue-in-cheek, the plan, but it's based on just the lakeshore. So it's parking, liquor, animals, and noise. Again, those all at the lakeshore. You'll see some of them come up later on throughout the community, but these are just for the lakeshore. So priority number 1 is the lakeshore. Priority number 2 is a pet community, we're calling it, but we're talking about animal control and animal restriction throughout the community. So that's not just at the lakeshore, that's everywhere in town. That's priority 2. Priority 3 is based on traffic safety, and it's safer drivers, safer vehicles, safer roads is what we've named it. But again, it is all about traffic safety, and it's throughout the community. Priority number 4 is reducing alcohol-related harm. Again, throughout the community. You did notice it on the lakefront. But again, one of our other main focuses would be on sports fields. So Pogattle Park specifically, but also other sports fields, as well as some other parks around town, and just an overall emphasis on impaired driving as well as part of this alcohol-related. And our 5th priority, again, we call it future investments, but that is further developing our community safety officer program. It's kind of flip-flop back and forth from a community safety officer program to transitioning to a school resource officer program, back to a community safety officer program again in 2026. And it's really looking at developing and bolstering that program, not just in 2026, but into the future. So those are the 5 priorities we're looking at. We do have strategies and everything within there, and I won't get into those. I'll just open it up for questions and let council ask any questions about strategies.
Sure, we'll start with questions and then we'll put a motion on the floor before we go into discussion. Do we have any questions for Mr. Lebsack? Councillor Iwanicki.
For priority 4, the reduce alcohol-related harm, I take it to mean that that's off Lakeshore. So it's, Lakeshore has its own kind of prioritization, including that item. What are we seeing in the community that necessitates this as a specifically named priority? Like, are we noticing a lot of drinking at Pegattle, or was the example used, like something along those lines? I'm just not seeing it.
So through the chair, yes, that would be, I guess there's 2 kind of aspects to this, and again, it kind of blends into our other priority about traffic related, but it's this alcohol related harm, as we call it here, is, yes, it's around, again, sports fields, Pegattle Park specifically, but certainly at other sports fields, Meadowview and Fox Run kind of are a hub there. They're a little bit more hidden. And there's some issues that we've had there in the past couple of years. Trail system, the CP trail system is fairly well hidden. So that would be a focus, as well as just, again, impaired driving throughout town.
Councillor Iwanicki.
Yeah, and that was going to actually segue into my follow-up question perfectly. And this is my very loose understanding of the breakdown in peace officer authority versus RCMP authority. What can a peace officer do in an instance if they suspect impaired driving? Because they can't do check stops, right? Like, they can't set up like an enforcement check stop without RCMP backing, can they?
So through the chair, yes, we can. That specific question, yes. Peace officers do participate with RCMP in check stops and have the ability to do that. We also do actual traffic patrol, pull people over. Now, the caveat there is that when a peace officer pulls someone over, we can do like an initial roadside assessment on it. And then if we do believe that there's an impaired charge to be laid, then we bring RCMP in, and they're the ones that lay the charge. We do not lay the charge, but we can do all the initial work right up to that stage.
Okay, so thank you very much, because I just wanted to make sure that I was understanding what was going on, and thumbs up for me now.
Thank you. Any additional questions, council? Would someone like to put a motion on the floor? Councilor Martins, thank you.
I'll make a motion that council approve the 2026 municipal enforcement strategic priorities as presented in report AIR 1354.
Thank you. We'll open it up for any discussion. Sure. Let me jump in then. I am hoping for a slight adjustment within these. My first question is, and maybe we're okay adding a 5th one, and then that would be fine. But I'm also wondering, the animal priority, now that we have really created a position around that, we've got a process, is that still a priority, or is that how we do business, I guess is my question. We've talked about that within our strategic planning. You know, those are the things we really want to move forward and do something different on, not necessarily the things we've kind of accomplished. And I guess I do wonder if that is still a priority, or we can just add another one. But really, my hope is to see something really specific to proactive enforcement. There's a really specific strategy that I have in mind, but I'd love to see it somewhere written within this practice that every neighborhood should have a proactive sweep once per, winter and summer season, really when it comes to things like unsightly properties, not clearing of their walkways, those types of situations, but where it's not that the neighbor has to complain every time. Well, that is a great tool, neighbor complaints, when something is happening that you weren't able to see too far in advance. I really think it is a terrible thing when it comes to neighbor relationships, that the only way that enforcement takes place is if you call someone on your neighbors. And I'd love to see that really built into the plan to make that a priority. that at least, I guess, twice a year it would be, there is the proactive neighborhood drive on every neighborhood in town. Also, under the youth one, I would love to see a specific strategy that relates to youth referrals to the Youth Justice Committee. We've learned over this last year that peace officers can refer to that program, and to date, I don't believe we've ever had one come from our peace officer program in town, and I'd love to see that explored, if that's an option, especially now that we have one position that's really working in the community. And yeah, wondering if we can spell those out. Any thoughts on those, Council? Councilor Iwanicki?
I guess this will save me from having to make my comment that I was going to make previously, because it touches on what Mayor Hansen was just saying. One of the things I'd really like to see, because I don't want to be that guy that goes around sending messages to the report a problem thing. I know I should. It's just something in the back of my brain just says, oh, I don't want to be the guy that's just complaining about my neighbors. Like, it just feels weird to me. But one of the things I do see constantly is like municipal or suburb, is that a right way to put it? Neighborhood parking issues and animals. Like, animals is identified here as a priority. I see cats everywhere, which I'm like, this is a weird thing. I haven't seen this before. But then also little things like parking. Like, I see the same vehicles basically blocking pedestrian crosswalks all the time, or like basically parked into a turn on an intersection and partially blocking the road. Like, I would like to see some proactive, like, and they probably already do this and we just don't see it, but something identified in there saying, you know, once a month they go through the entire neighborhood of here and, you know, do a sweep and check for these kind of things that you can see with your naked eyes, right? That's pretty obvious. I think that'd go a long way towards, you know, showing that we're providing some enforcement, proactive enforcement outside of the lakefront. Just my 2 cents.
Council, any additional comments on that? And then, because, Councillor Payne, your eyes tell me you might have one.
No, I'm good. I had one somewhere along the line, or I had a comment about one of your statements about the Youth Justice Committee, but I think professional discretion is going to work anyhow, so I'm fine.
Ms. Phillips, my question is, if we want to make edits to this plan, what is our process to do that?
We'll look to Mr. Lepsak as well, but I think it sounds like there's a fairly significant change there. So if we get that feedback and the consensus from council that that's what you'd like to see, we would just bring it back to the next meeting. Would that work for you, Mr. Lepsak? Yeah. So I'm hearing remove the pet one. And is there a concern with that, I guess, from everyone?
Let me do a round of council just on those couple of items to ensure we have some consensus.
Then I'm hearing cats, so.
Councillor Mearns, any
Yeah,
thoughts?
I'm fine with the suggestions brought forward by Councillor Iwanicki and Mayor Hansen, so I'm fine to have those edits and brought back, so.
Councillor Iwanicki, anything?
Yeah, my only concern with removing the pet one, a pet community, sorry, I should use proper terminology, is it's something that I never really turned my mind to until we were going through like the community survey and stuff like that. I was staggered with how many people flagged like loose animals as a concern. And I appreciate we're gonna have some more mechanisms behind to do something about that, but I'm hesitant to remove it just because I do think that it is on people's minds. And leaving it on there for a year just reinforces that we're focusing on it.
I guess my question is, do we need to remove one to add that proactive enforcement portion? Mr. Lepsak.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was going to actually respond to the pet one, in that the reason we did put it on there is we have seen an uptick probably in the last 2 to 3 years on actual, we'll just call them dog encounters. So dog bites, dog attacks, whether it's on a person or another animal. We've seen a little bit of an uptick on there in the last couple of years, which is one of the reasons why we thought it might be a priority. So to the second question, I would like to, if you want 6 priorities in total, I would give it a roll to incorporate those last 2, you know, into what's here and make it 6 priorities, including keeping the animal one on there, including youth and including self-generated files, you know, increased enhanced enforcement. Those 3 kind of lumped into a 6th priority in here, if that works for council, but that would be my
Sure. Seeing a nod from Councillor Mearns, Councillor Johannesson, will jump to you next on your thoughts.
Yep, I'm fine with what Mr. Lipsek just said. I'd like to stick up for cats. I have cats and I love cats, and it hurts me when people come after cats, so I want that on the record.
We'll go after dogs too.
I have cats.
I think the proactive enhanced community strolling around is something that I think can fit kind of as an overlay of just about all of this. It's just good proactive enforcement. So I don't know if it needs to be a 6th priority in as much as it needs to be a directive from administration to the peace officers that we need to be, like, for me, that should be how you do business. You shouldn't have to wait to get a complaint to do the right thing. So does it need to be a priority? I don't think so. I think it needs to be how we should do things. It's much like priority number 2, where, I'm not sure that priority number 2 needs to be a priority. It should just be the way we do things. So if it needs to be a priority for a year to get it so that it becomes a cultural shift, then so be it. Does there need to be a 6th? I don't think so. I think what there needs to be is an understanding that peace officers can start their own complaint. If you see something that isn't correct, don't wait for someone to tell you to go fix it. Go fix it. So, however, that needs to be laid out.
I'll just know, I would really like to see it laid out because we've had this conversation a handful of times over the last few years, and we still continually hear that our process this is a complaint-driven process. So I do believe that takes a really intentional shift to shift away from, even if it's for a short period of time. Councillor Payne, did you have a thought? So what I am hearing is that maybe a motion to table this agenda item. Is that the best way to address this? Or we have a motion on the floor. How should we handle this?
It could be table or postpone. Probably table because you want to have more discussion at the next one.
Yep. Sure. I would make that motion that we table this until our next regular meeting of council. Any further comments on that tabling motion? Okay. All those in favor and opposed, and that is carried unanimously. Thank you. All right, council, we've reached 5 o'clock. It's kind of a natural time, so let's take 10 minutes here and then we will resume the meeting. We are all back. We will move along to item number 7F, the municipal government building renovations. Mr. Boudreau, welcome.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Today, I have before you my report to award the tender for the renovations for the lower level of the MGB. This first stage of the project for this renovation will see constructed 2 managers' offices, 1 specialized IT workstation, 1 small meeting room, approximately 15 generalized workstations, as well as enclosure of our maintenance areas. The tendering process, we saw 7 proponents submitted, with 6 of them meeting the criteria needed. Of those 6, Timcon Construction came in with the lowest bid of $538,604. The budget for this project, we estimate, including engineering and contingency, should cost approximately $723,589. Current budget available we do have is $870,800. We presented a few options for council to consider, with administration respectfully recommending that council award the tender for the renovations of the lower level of the MGB to Timcon Construction for $538,604. Thank you. I'll take any questions you have.
Excellent. We'll start with questions. Councillor Payne? Nope.
I'm just happy to see that it came in so under budget.
That's great. No more questions I'm not seeing, so let's put a motion on the floor and then we can discuss.
I move that council award the contract for the renovations to the lower level of the MGB to Timcon Construction for $538,604, excluding contingency and GST as presented in AIR 1358. And again, I love that it's come in so much under budget. I like the idea again of not explaining to people what our budget is before we go to tender. Like that's a smart thing.
Councillor Iwanicki?
Yeah, and then just seconding what Councillor Payne just pointed out, just looking at the frankly shocking delta between the lowest and highest bidder, like a $2.1 million difference, really goes to show that that there was clearly a lot of wiggle room between the bidders on what they felt this project would be. So I'm quite happy to see we're under budget and happy to see that we're taking one that's on the lower end and not $2.6 million.
I have a question around data tracking. Of course, this is the first year we've ever done this process without releasing those numbers, and this is really one of the first ones because there's a bit of a delay on it. Are we doing any overall tracking of that so then when we make that decision again later this year of do we want to continue with the lump sum number or with the specific project numbers? We've seen savings on some projects. I'm assuming we're not going to see, like, that won't happen incredibly often, but are we doing some overall tracking of that, Ms. Phillips?
We haven't talked about actual tracking, but we can definitely do that. Our intention is, well, in April, we'll start talking about, we'll evaluate the budget process and how we want to move forward. Before we bring the next capital budget, we're planning on bringing forward a report on, if administration felt it was effective and get feedback from council on what they, if they like the process, or this is the first year that we've not disclosed numbers, right? So it'll give us that chance to evaluate it for a full year, and then council will have that decision then to say, yeah, let's try this for a few more years, or go back to disclosing each project. But we can definitely start tracking and compare.
It's hard to tell if that was the direct result. It truly is.
Yeah. So projects like these, I think Mr. Khan would agree, and Eric, I forget last names, I'm sorry. Boudreau,
You got my first one.
That's it. I got it. It's here. I think they'd agree that some of these types of projects often come in at a range, but I don't think it hurts to not disclose where we're even willing to start. So, yeah. Thank you.
Council, any other comments? We do have a motion on the floor. Councillor Johansson.
Just curious, so with the range in bids that we got, this obviously numbers is great, coming under budget. Are we, in your opinion and administration's opinion, are we sacrificing anything? Because what I would hate to see is, like, I always get confused why one person would say it's 2 million and another person say 500. Does that mean we're going to be getting a patchwork job and then we're going to have to spend more money in the future to fix that? Like, that's just a concern that would go through my head as far as that type of range, because we don't want to spend this money and then have to spend another 500,000, you know, fixing because they didn't do the job correctly or whatever. So
Thank you, through the chair, to Councillor Johansson. That's a great question, yeah. We're concerned about the same thing as well. It is strange to have an outlier of this magnitude on anything. This is the biggest discrepancy I've ever seen on a proposal I've done in my career. But, you know, we're comforted in this one. There was 3 or 4 that came in very, very close to each other. So that tells us we had our scope right, we had all the items in there, we knew we had everything we wanted for a deliverable on the project, and it came in at a reasonable level, be it the lowest one wasn't all by itself, which is always comforting. It's when you have that one outlier that's all by itself and then there's a cluster in the middle, that's when you got to scratch your head as you're saying, am I missing anything? Is there something here of concern? Another thing we do, we check references. We ensure they have all the criteria that we say is needed for the contractor to be able to do the job reasonably well to meet our expectations and needs. And then going through that entire process, again, it ensures that we are getting somebody competent, somebody who can meet our deliverables as needed. And with the hopes, you know, with multiple bids in place, we can see how it measures up against the rest of the community.
Awesome. Thank you. Excellent. Thank you. Seeing no further hands in the air, we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor? And opposed? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we will move along to the Municipal Financial Reserve Policy with Mr. Moore.
I just want to say, Mr. Moore works his butt off at the gym, and I see him there quite often. So just want to say that. It's nice seeing you there.
Thank you, Mayor Hansen and Council, for the comments. Yeah, so first report tonight from Corporate Services is the Financial Reserve policy. Sorry about that. And yeah, so this is a fairly new policy for us, adopted in September of last year. So just bringing forth some changes at this time. Some I feel we need to discuss a bit more internally on how it will work. So during the 26 operating budget presentations and deliberations, several of these were identified and mentioned to Council. And the policy at this time really just reflects the 2 changes plus a couple others I'll get to in a second here. So the next source naming, sponsorship revenue, and the paid parking program revenue change, where Council expressed desire to have the paid parking program, the use of the funds expanded to cover tourism-related projects for the waterfront. So those are the, from the ones that were presented during the budget process, those are the 2 that we're looking to have Council consider changing the policy to at this time. We're also looking for direction from Council tonight on some other things there highlighted in the report. So in the 2026 operating budget as proposed, one idea was there's $550,000 set aside to put into reserve for future needs. And so one idea was to create a new building capital reserve with that money, or it can be added to an existing reserve. The other 2 items there is regarding the operating contingency policy and the building maintenance policy, current policies in effect. So we talked about this last fall, that might be an option to consolidate these 2 policies into the reserve policy. So that's kind of also a proposal that is before you this evening. Both those policies call for there's a schedule going through 2028, and at one point in 2028, when we reach, the idea was to put annually into those reserves for these two items 1% of the municipal tax levy each year. And so for 2026, of course, we're at 250,000. And so even with these policies, if they stayed in effect, we'll never get to that threshold. So you can see in the report the two amounts that will be in the 2027 fiscal year budget that will be proposed. Both are at 215,000. So I guess at this time, council can say yea or nay to this, but the recommendation is to rescind both those policies and put in the reserve policy itself just an amount that can be revisited by council, of course, every year. And that amount is proposed to be 250,000. So if council, doesn't like that amount at this time, of course, that's something that can be discussed during the 2027 budget cycle, which will be upon us sooner than we might think. So those are the recommended changes at this time to the financial reserves policy, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that council might have.
Excellent. We'll start with those questions. Seeing none, would someone like to put forward a motion? Councillor Payne. Quick on the draw tonight. Appreciate it.
I'm paying attention. I didn't have a hard day with my daughter. So. Okay, there's a bunch of pieces here, so we're going to go through all of them. I move that council adopt the financial reserve policy F003013A as outlined in report AIR 1353, and that council rescind policy F003013, and that council rescind operating contingency policy F003011, and that council rescind the building maintenance policy F003012.
Excellent. Council, any discussion? Councillor Iwanicki.
I'm perfectly happy with all of this. The one thing that I would maybe propose to everyone to think of maybe a wording change is in regards to the financial reserves from the paid parking program. So it says, funds are to be used solely for waterfront initiatives, including tourism. The way I read that reads to me that the tourism initiative has to be a waterfront initiative at the same time. So I would rather see that a bit more broadly worded, right? Like, because then a tourism initiative for Pagattle Park could be captured as an example. Just so that it's clear, that's all.
Could it just replace including for or? Councillor Payne?
I think as long as the paid parking is there, I would rather it stay there. Once we get to a point where paid parking floods into other areas of the community, I could see then that pool of funds being used in other spaces. But for me personally, I would rather keep it there. So at this point, I don't really feel like I want to change the wording away from that. But I do think if council's appetite is to change it, I think an or is the appropriate thing. But I don't see a reason to change it at this point.
Can I just ask the question? My understanding behind this change is because, especially with the new changes, we anticipate that fund will create more revenue than our costs are. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mayor
So expanding into that tourism allows us to use it for, say, marketing dollars or something. Really, it is lakefront related, but Ms. Phillips.
Our intent was initially, and again, up to council's discretion, if you wanted to expand it, was around the lakefront. So positions, staff positions that are around the lakefront, like the extra bylaw in the summer, that are particular to the lakefront. And that's why we thought tourism around the lakefront. But if, whether it's this year or in future years, we wanted to change that to expand into other areas, we could definitely do that. But we intentionally worded it around the lakefront because of the paid parking being in that area.
Councillor Mearns.
Yeah, I'll echo what Councillor Payne said. That was, I thought, our intention behind it, because that's where the parking is. Thinking of Pagattle Park, if in the event that we do have paid parking up there, then I would welcome the conversation to say, what does that look like for those funds for that area? But I'm happy to leave the policy where it is, just around the lakefront, because that's our focus and where the paid parking's at.
So just to be clear, maybe we'll even do a thumbs up, thumbs down, including tourism in that, like the lakefront tourism. Is that a included or an excluded? Thumbs down.
Well, I think one of the things about lakefront tourism is it's a very broad term. And I think lakefront tourism will include anything that supports the lakefront, you know, including the bylaw officer. So I don't think it's so specific that it's restrictive, which is, I think, the intention here is to not be restrictive in how that money is used, providing it supports the lakefront structure.
Councilor Burns.
Yeah, like it's worded in here to cover tourism-related costs to the waterfront.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm
Sorry,
fine with
Councilor
that.
Payne, I thought you were arguing against that inclusion, because that's what's being proposed, and that's where I was trying to see if it factored in.
No, I think the way it's worded is it's general enough that it's not restrictive. And I think when, in the conversations we've had, particularly in regards to the bylaw enforcement, I think this allows for that to happen with the wording the way it is.
Great, so we're comfortable as presented then? Okay. Any additional comments? Seeing none, we have a number of motions on the floor, but we can vote on them all together as they're all connected. All those in favor? And opposed, and that is carried unanimously. Next, we'll move along. Yes, Ms. Phillips.
Mr. Moore, did you need more direction? I think more, mainly on the 550, correct? Did you need direction on that?
On the which, sorry?
The building, new building reserve, did you need direction on that? If council wanted to put it there or somewhere else, or? Was it reflected in the motion? Okay.
Sorry, that's how I read it.
That's how I understand.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're good.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Thank you.
But if you'd
Just
like
wanted
a
to make
separate
sure.
motion,
Yeah, no,
because I
I-
believe that's the intent of council, to be clear.
No, I think we're good. If you,
think
I just
so.
wanted to make sure. Thank you.
All right, let's carry on to the 2026 operating and capital projects budget update.
Thank you, Mayor Hansen. So as we do every year at this time, we bring a report forth to council to approve carryover projects from 2025, in this case in prior years. And so the funding sources that were approved carry forward with that, and any new funds sometimes are added in the current year budget, be in 2026 as well, so they may be combined with new funding for those projects that carry on. So just looking for council to approve the carryover projects, both operating and capital from 2025 and prior years. Essentially, it's amending the 2026 budget to include those projects.
That's great. Council, we'll start with any questions. Seeing none, would someone like to put forward a motion? Councilor Burns. Thank you.
I make a motion that council approve AIR 1352, amending the 2026 budget by updating operating and capital projects to include carryovers from prior years.
Excellent. We'll open it up for any debate. Seeing none, we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor? And opposed? And that is carried unanimously. Next, move along to the 2026 operating budget.
Thank you, Mayor Hansen. Yes, so with this report, alas, after the process has run its course, we're looking for council to approve the 2026 operating budget tonight. I won't go too much into the numbers there. It's all outlined in the report. The overall combined municipal tax rate does not change from 2025, as council is aware of. We've seen some significant increases to the education tax requisition from the province of Alberta, as everyone is well aware of. We've seen some increase in the Sylvan Lake foundation requisition as well for 2026. Yeah, so unless there's any specific questions about the 2026 operating budget from council, we're just looking for approval this evening.
Great, thank you. We'll start with any questions. Seeing no questions, I'll just walk you through process because this one is a little bit clunky, really because of me. We've got a couple different motions on the floor. The first one is relating to fire. I will exit and Deputy Mayor Payne will take over the meeting for council to have that discussion and that vote. Once that's done, we can come back and put the operating budget motion on the floor. Of course, we can talk about any of the projects through there, but if there's any any specific line items with the budgeted amount that we'd like to discuss in further detail, I do have a prepared motion that we could go into closed session to do that, and then we would come back out, of course, to deal with the rest of the motion. So seeing no additional questions, I am going to exit because I have a conflict of interest when it comes to the fire motion. Ms. Phillips. Sure.
Declaring pecuniary interest.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Thank you.
So with that being said, are we going to move to the pre-approval piece for the fire department first then? Okay. So what are we doing with that?
I can highlight, there was just a few items on there that were pertain to the fire department.
Mm-hmm.
There's the cost of living increase that is organization-wide, but specific to the fire department of 2.16%, as well as we added a volunteer wellness benefit to the fire department. This is something that is provided to our employees already, and we just thought, why aren't our volunteer firefighters getting this? And thought they should get it as well for all they do for our community, as well as an increase to the peer support program. So overall, the projects and the COLA increase is $20,600.
Okay.
So you'd pre-approve that so that when you're approving the entire budget, it's in there, but Mayor Hansen is not voting on that because it's already been approved.
Okay, so we'll look for a motion before we enter into any debate. Councilor Armanicki?
Yeah, I move that council pre-approve the fire department budget additions in the amount of $20,600.
Excellent, there's the motion. Any questions, conversation about this? No? I think we all support our firemen quite a bit, so we will vote on this. All in favor of this motion? Excellent, that's passed unanimously, so let's get the mayor back and we'll continue on with the operating budget. Yeah, it's very, very creative. For those of you who aren't aware of the situation there, is if a council member has a financial interest in a motion or in an administrative piece, then they separate themselves from the motion so that there's not a personal interest in what's happening. And in this case, our mayor's husband is a volunteer firefighter. So that was the very appropriate thing to do. So we will give it back to the mayor so we can move on to the approval of the operating budget.
You know, I love that our meetings are recorded because you can just step into the back and watch. Thank you for taking over that portion of the meeting, Deputy Mayor Payne. Next, we'll move along. Would someone like to make a motion for council to approve the 2026 operating budget as presented? Or I guess they can make the motion however they wish. Councillor Payne.
I move that council approve the town of Sylvan Lake's 2026 operating budget of $80,380,815 and approve the 3-year financial plan.
Great. Council will open it up for any conversation. Councillor Armanicki.
I bring this up just because, not because I'm recommending it, it's just for future thinking. It's just kind of circling back to something I said during our budget discussions previously, is my concern about what happens if our assessments stay flat or, heaven forbid, go down. I think we need to be cognizant of that issue for next year. And not that I'm suggesting we do a floating mill rate or anything along those lines, but maybe looking at options for that so that we're not so handcuffed by the increasing of assessments in order to handle our budgeting. Just food for thought. We don't really have to have a broad discussion on it. I just wanted to put it out there for everyone.
Councillor Bain.
You know, interesting to that, Councillor Awaniki, is as we, over the last several years, every year we've anticipated having to have an increase simply because for so long, particularly in those COVID years and the years after, we worked so hard to have zero or very low tax increases. So knowing that we had gone so long without tax increases, it's kicking that can down the road. So I think having the idea that we need to be very cognizant that this is not always going to be the case. You know, the situation that we encountered again this year with the increased assessment, I think it's a very wise thing to have it in the back of your mind that going forward, there's going to be a time when there's going to have to be an increase. There's going to have to be something changing. We've been very lucky, but I think one of the dangers in continually striving to have that 0% is it catches up with you. Simply inflation catches up with you. So I think it's a very important thing to be cognizant of. It's not always going to be this way. At some point, there's going to be a slide that you can't avoid. And you're seeing that in most Alberta municipalities. Right now, you have tax rates increases from 3 and 4% all the way up to 12 to 15%. So we're just very lucky in this municipality that we're not suffering that same fate.
Councillor Johansson.
Just more of a point of reference, I think. I've done the needs assessment, the rec and culture needs assessment has been an interesting thing that I've been diving into a little bit, especially with our presented cost. And so I did come across, and again, this is just for whoever's doing the tendering, Strathmore did this already in March of 2024, and everything that I've looked into, it's very similar to what we're looking for, and they did it for $60,000. So, which would be a significant win for us if we can be anywhere near that. The pros seem to outweigh the cons. There can be some stuff that is biased depending on which user groups they talk to and things like that, but I was not so sure about this before, but looking at what Strathmore did and diving into that a little bit more, I think it could be really good for us. But yeah, I thought that was an interesting thing. They did the exact same thing for $60,000. So just wanted to put that out there.
That's great. And Councillor Johansson, if you've got that up, I would love it if you'd share that with Council. It'd be an interesting scan for all of us. Appreciate that.
Sure. Do you want me to do that now, or do you want me to?
Yeah, now after just send it by email would be, when you find something interesting like that, it's nice for us to maybe see what we might be in for. And Ms. Phillips. Yeah, thank you for doing that research. Council, any additional comments? We do have a motion on the floor then. All those in favor? And opposed? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moore. Next, we'll move along to correspondence and information items. I'll just note, really appreciate that we're starting to see those draft meeting minutes and seeing a bit more up-to-date information on some of our committees. I just really, really appreciate that, so thank you. Any additional comments or question on those information items, Council? Seeing none, we'll move along to the CAO report. Ms. Phillips.
All right, as usual, I will highlight a few points within the report, but if you have any questions about anything in the report or outside of the report regarding our departments, you can definitely ask. So community services, we have our volunteer information session happening at the Community Center Gym on April 21st. Great way to help us recruit volunteers and organizations to recruit volunteers for their programs. Next source, a true sign of spring. Ice is coming out everywhere between March, end of March and end of April. Yeah. RCT, within grants, our RCT micro grant is live and has opened up on February 1st. So if you know of any organizations looking for funding, that's a great way to, direction to point them in. Parks and Protective Services, May 15th, the Pagado Campground opens, but bookings are already open, so. And we will be hiring in all of our departments here shortly, especially now that we have a approved budget. I think staff's very excited to move forward on that. The second annual report for the Housing Accelerator Fund grant has been submitted to CMHC, and we did have an opportunity to apply for additional initiatives again. So if approved, we may qualify for some additional funding, so that's exciting. Environmental Services, we had a long-term odor complaint near the GTI gas station that we've been working on, so. And then our outdoor rinks, again, spring is coming, so they are closing. They closed as of March 16th, and we've already started filling potholes. And also excited to see the traffic signs at 47th Ave and Thevenaz Iron Gate Boulevard are up and operational. It sure makes it nice going through that area. And we're also coordinating work to begin looking for and drilling for new potential well locations within the town. So, oh, and I also have to highlight, I just love the name of this program, Mermaids Love Winter 2 campaign, which launched December 15th, 2025. Great job with our tourism department. We reached 7 million users, and this was to promote year-round destination, targeting couples, girls' getaways, and solo travelers. So, if there's any questions.
Seeing none. Thank you. Next, council will move along to council request for information updates. I have none listed. Is there anything we've missed there? All right, we'll move to the notice of motion, ready for your decision. My motion is that Town Council direct administration to research and draft a municipal spaces solicitation, vending, and petitioning policy, incorporating best practices from comparable Alberta municipalities, and return the proposed policy to council for review. Now that my motion's on the floor, I'll open it up for any comments. Councillor Payne?
Seems to be a very hot button topic provincially, not just locally. So I suspect if we do this with conversation and coordination with other municipalities, I think we're going to find that this is a very popular, very common thing to be happening. And so I think it's timely. It's a good time to work on this.
And to speak to that, realizing that we didn't have one, we've realized that now, but a number of other municipalities have been on this train for the last year or so, doing various things with those policies. So it's almost nice that we are not the very first ones, because we'll be able to pull from some examples from other communities that have already done this. And looking forward to having a further conversation around it when it comes back. Councillor Abeniki.
Yeah, and I don't want to presuppose what I would ultimately decide at the end of the day, but like, I was actually surprised that we didn't have anything to this effect, right? Because it puts our facilities managers in a weird spot on whether they can say yes or no to somebody. Like that presentation we had, just as an example, about doing the separation thing, whatever it was, or wherever they wanted to do it. I think they wanted to do it at NextSource, but there was comments on, oh, it's a public building. And in my head, I'm like, well, should they be allowed to go to the mob and do that, right? That's a public building too. So like, you know, setting out a really strong framework of where someone can and can't do these things so that, you know, a manager feels comfortable saying yes or no to something and having it even-handed, and then ultimately more clearly identifying what would be considered like a public space, right? Like, anyway, I think it's a good idea that we should look into, and I will support this.
Thanks. Seeing no further hands, all those in favor? And opposed, and that is carried unanimously. Council, we have no closed session items tonight, so we have reached the end of our agenda. We're making up some hours that we all kept you for during the last month or so. Our meeting is adjourned. Thank you.